Hello, everybody. It's the interview queen, Alicia Atout here, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to my interview with Gary Numan and Ade Fenton. Hello.
Hello.
How are you both doing today? How are you getting on over there?
Yeah, all right.
Good, thank you. Yeah, been a long day though.
Yeah.
Has it? Just lots and lots behind the scenes right now, revving up for the record release.
Yeah, it's great. It's exciting. Yeah, I've been doing it my whole life, which is a long time now, and it's still. I still get as excited about it as I did when I started. So, being busy is good. That's what you want.
Do you find that the nerves are still kind of bubbling before releasing a record at this point, or is it all just anticipation now? You know, the nerves are out the window and now it's just killing you, counting it down day by day.
Yeah, the nervousness comes when you've finished it and it's been mastered. So there's nothing more you can do to fix it or make it better. And then all the doubt comes in. You know, could you have done more? Could you have written better melodies? You know, all of that happens for the month or two that follows it. And then you work on the artwork, and you kind of get you have to listen to it, because of the lyrics and so on, and I think that gap away from it a little bit, so it's got to help to put it back into perspective, and hopefully you like it at the end of that, and then you're just getting on with the work to try to make it do as well as it can. And there's a big build up to it that we're doing now, endlessly signing albums and all the things that you do. So no, it's exciting now, and the closer it gets, the more exciting it becomes, and all the nervousness is largely gone. Not entirely, but largely gone.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about Intruder a little bit more, but before diving fully into the record release, Gary, I know you must just be super happy right now because yesterday one of your childhood dreams came true. You got to actually sit in the pilot seat of a Concorde 101. So how was that experience for you? Because that smile was massive in that photo you posted.
It was great, actually. I went there to do an interview with the BBC about something else completely. They just used that place as a location for it. And I used to be based there many years ago. I was an air display pilot, and I was based there, so I knew it really well. But I hadn't been there for a long time, and I'd never been able to. They wouldn't let me go in Concorde, But we were there yesterday, and the museum closed, and it was all empty, and they just let me go in it, and it was just, I'm such an aeroplane anorak. It was fantastic. Really good day.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you were able to make that happen for yourself for sure. Now, before diving into the record, it's very obvious that you two have such a great history. And this, of course, is not the first release that you have worked on together. It's your fifth. So have you had chemistry from the beginning, or did you guys kind of have to ease into things? Because it really does seem like a great pairing at this point.
It's got better.
Cheers, mate.
Ade was a techno DJ before, which really wasn't my cup of tea at all. And so, I wasn't massively enthusiastic or keen on what he was doing back then. But then he started to do more industrial, more heavier things in a very different direction. And that was much more impressive. And I don't mean to be saying what he did before wasn't. It just wasn't to my taste.
Digging a hole, mate.
Yeah, just shovel a bit.
I can't wait to hear what Ade's first impression of you was. I hope you've got something to come back with.
I've dug a big enough hole.
Like absolute wanker over here. That's hilarious.
Pick me out.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, I thought he was great. I loved him. Look, I mean, I was just really lucky that, when he gave me the job of producing Jagged in 2005, I kind of learned on the job, to be quite honest. Even though the level at which I was doing stuff was still pretty high. I've improved kind of so much from back then, but I kind of did learn on the job, and that's a very lucky position to be in when you're working with someone like Gary Numan,
Right.
But for me, there was an added level of responsibility because, in 1979, I had pictures of Gary Numan on my wall, and then to be sort of working with
full circle,
your hero, and that is obviously something really special, I vividly remember the first day that I worked on a track the first track that Gary gave me, a track called Scanner from Jagged. And, just to have Gary's vocals in isolation in my studio, like, sort of monumental moment, you know, and of course now, you know, we've sort of become so close as a working relationship and a personal relationship that it's kind of second nature. But you know, it was a slow burner to start with, but you know, we got there in the end, I think.
Clearly on Gary's end, but hey, now you are here, and it looks like things have gone very swimmingly since.
Thanks.
Well, I actually remember having you, Gary, on my show a few years back when you were performing here in Toronto, and we were kind of discussing wastelands and global warming. And meanwhile, Intruder, this newest and upcoming release, this kind of focuses on a philosophical just examination of a potential future apocalypse. So I'd really love to know just what sparked the idea for wanting to write about that, because I love how when your releases come out, I never know what direction you're going to take it. It's always something really interesting and kind of makes your mind think a lot.
It actually started with my well, first of all, I'd done Savage, and that had a climate change kind of connection, but it wasn't really about climate change. It looked more to the future as to how the humanity of it, how human beings would need to adapt, and they would become savage. That was the whole point of it. So I wanted to stay with a climate change connection, but I didn't want it to be a science journal set to music. You're talking about facts and figures and the rainforest is burning and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't really know what to do, really. I just knew I wanted that connection. And then my youngest, Echo, about 2 years ago, wrote a poem called Earth, which was the Earth talking to the other planets and explaining why it was sad and how horrible people were and all the things that they'd done. And it was really lovely and it was really beautifully done. And it showed a great deal of understanding and sympathy and so on. And so I just stole the idea of that. I mean, that was perfect.
Thank you, Echo.
Yeah, it's really good. And so I did. I just shamelessly stole it and turned it into a broader look at that same thing, and tried to find a dozen different ways of exploring how the Earth would feel. You know, you obviously you put human feelings onto it. It's a bit of a leap to assume the planet feels anything anyway, you know, but having done that, you just try to find not just ways of expressing the different emotions that the planet might be feeling, of which there will be several, you know, anger, disillusionment, hurt, whatever, but then looking into what is it fighting back? Will it fight back? Is it already fighting back? You know, does nature have a mechanism to deal with something like human beings, you know, which have, in my opinion, have grown out of control to what we originally intended to be, and we've become very destructive and more like an infestation than a, you know, we're not part of the brutal harmony, if you like, of nature, which exists and is very cruel and very unpleasant and everything eats everything else, but it works very, very well. You know, we kind of ruin that a little bit. And so you're trying to look into that side of it, and then you're trying to draw parallels between religion and how people could be so devoted to something for which there is no evidence, and yet so unbelieving of something for which there is a mountain of evidence, and a contradiction of that. I even tried to draw a parallel with dragons. You know, I choose to believe that dragons were real. I
remember talking with you about this back here.
Dragons. You know, I think they were around at one point, and so to try to draw a parallel again between what happened to dragons and how they were cornered and eventually wiped out because of us, and now in a way we're doing much the same thing with the planet. So you're just looking for that sort of ways of trying to explore that idea and draw parallels with other things, rather than just being a load of songs about how terrible a field is all rubbish, you know. But that's really that's it. You know, I'm not an eco warrior champion. I got very, very poor credentials when it comes to the environment. So I'm very easy to shoot down as a target. You know, you've only got to ask me how many cars I've got, and I'm not the right spokesman for eco things. You know, so I'm aware of that, and I'm a weak link in all of this. But the message that what I'm saying is true, whether I'm a hypocrite or not. You know, the message is true. There is a crisis, and it is imminent, and and something absolutely fundamental needs to be done to change it. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not even trying to be like, chest thumping. You've all got to change and you've all got to be different. I'm not doing that at all. I am a citizen of the world, and I have the concerns that other people have about what's going on in the world, and I just happen to write songs. So I'm able to put those concerns into music and put it out. But I'm really not trying to bully people and hit them over the head and say you've all got to change, because, like I say, I'm a hypocrite, because I'm guilty of all the things that other people are guilty of. But I do think that change has to happen, and we all have to make some sort of sacrifice for that to happen. We just need the power and the guidance to lead us in the right direction.
And Ade, of course, hearing all of this and knowing what the entire record is about conceptually, were these topics for you that actually sparked an interest prior and you were passionate about, or has working with Gary kind of now either turned you on to those topics, or just behind the scenes like, nope, dragons definitely aren't a thing?
Well, I've got a 5-year-old boy, so, my current thinking is that dragons do exist, still. I have to think along those lines. And I'm probably quite guilty of being a bit of a skeptic, probably 12, 15 years ago, or whatever, and had some arguments on the tour bus with the drummer about climate change issues. I was more on the sort of Jeremy Clarkson camp maybe 15 years ago, but it's plain for anyone to see. It wasn't because Gary was writing about it, but you only have to look at the polar ice caps and look at from the photos from 5 years ago to now, and there is no argument anymore. It's not even a thing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I again, I'm certainly not an eco warrior by any stretch, but I try to do my bit, even though I think my bit is just recycling cardboard and tin cans. I still try.
Yeah, that's all it takes sometimes, Yes. Well, you did share the title track for the album, and that is just such a banger of a release. And I love that you carry your signature synths onto this record, but it's also rather industrial and dark at the same time. So do you kind of like the fact that your songs and albums, they kind of carry this wonderful mysteriousness about them all?
Some of that is Ade's doing. He'll sneak legacy sounds onto things and hope I don't notice.
Legacy sounds.
Legacy sounds. Yeah.
I love that.
But yes, I think in a way, as soon as I start singing, then it sounds like a Gary Numan record. So that's kind of a double-edged sword, really. If you can't really get away from that, and in some respects, that stops you from progressing up to a point, because it always just sounds like Gary Numan. So what you need to do around that, and the way that the music itself evolves over time, is very, very important, more important than ever, because you've got this distinctive centerpiece of it which you can't get away from. And that's really where Ade's genius comes in that I write the tunes and I build them all up to a level that gives Ade a very clear direction as to what I see for the song, the dynamics of it, the grooves of it, all the melody, obviously, that's all there. But then Ade has to turn that kind of rough-edged block into something very shaped and beautiful, and it's not always easy. I don't always. A lot of what I do is very, very crude. These huge just drum loops thumping through everything, and it's all massive and somewhat out of control at times. And he has to bring all that back in and retain the elements of that made it exciting and good, whatever, but just polish it and refine it and make it more professional, really. So I think as a team, we work really, really well. I just throw constant stuff at him, which he then has to,
Luckily, he's there to catch it.
Pass it back to me as this lovely polished thing. So as a team, I think we work incredibly well, and I'm really, really proud of the music that we've been making, especially of late. I think it's just gone onto a different level with the last 2 or 3 that we've done.
Well, as mentioned, just some songwriting over time, and of course throwing in those more legacy elements. And this release marks your 18th solo studio album. And just me saying that out loud, and it's not even my work or my discography, that's a crazy number. So has that kind of sunk in for you at all? Does that number matter at all to you in a sense? Because that's a lot of material over the years, and a lot of great material.
It doesn't matter to me as a number. And obviously I did albums with Tube Rummy before that and collaborations. The actual number of albums I've made are well into the 20s. I don't even know, of original stuff, let alone compilations and live albums and so on. So there is a huge amount of work out there. But no, I'm not. I don't really care about the numbers. In fact, the higher the number, the more aware I am of how old I am. So I don't really want to think about the numbers of it too much. Now, what concerns me is how many of them are worthwhile, how many of them are good records. And they've not all been good. Some of them have been definitely lower than others, but not for a long time. I think my worst album was 92. And I think everything I've done since then has been better. And each one has been a bit better than one before. So I've had a very satisfying upward gradient since the low point of 92. And I'm very proud of that. And I think, we're having some reasonable success now. Depending on where you are in the world, and I've done it, largely thanks to Ade's help, but without compromising. The music is as heavy and as dark and uncompromising as it's ever been. I haven't sold out. I haven't gone middle of the road and bland. I've not been safe and lived on past glories and just kept writing things that sound like cars. I've tried to keep moving forward and keep experimenting. And together, I think we've been able to do something that's, something to be proud of, and that is a worthy successor to the things that I did when I first started. Which is considered to be groundbreaking and all that lovely stuff. You want to towards the end of your career, you want to still be putting out stuff that has that same caliber, merit to it, and I think I've done that, and I'm really, really proud of that.
Oh, 100%, absolutely. And I know you've released a couple of things off of Intruder, but with it really right around the corner coming out, I cannot wait to hear the rest of it. So I really do want to say, just Gary, Ade, thank you so much for taking the time, for hopping on here. It was really lovely catching up and being able to have you on the show. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Of course. Bye.
Bye-bye.